All right, at 7 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. Has the meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
Moving on to recognitions. Anybody from the board have anything?
You know, I'd like to just take a minute and recognize Irfan Ulhaq for his service to the board with his passing and stuff. So,
Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else from the board have anything?
I'd just like to say thank you to our staff and some of our students for assisting with the Fast Start days. I had a parent of 2 kids that benefited from that, and it was just really helpful in that transition to new buildings.
Anybody else on the board? Anybody from the audience?
Grant County Fair just finished up this past week, so I'd like to recognize all of the students and their exhibits and all of the time and energy and efforts that they put into that. It was a great showing for the Platteville community.
Thanks.
farm trivia was phenomenal.
Continuing the recognition for Fast Start Day at the high school, we had a record 53 clubs that were part of our involvement fair, club sports, activities, et cetera. So tons of opportunities for students to get involved, and something that was really neat for the freshmen to see all the different things that they could do while they're a student at PHS.
Well, I'll say our Fast Start Day went really well too. We also had Dr. Underly visit on Monday, and that was a really amazing experience for us. Went really well. And then, of course, we have our new pickup and drop-off lane open, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. There is some negative too at this point, but I think it's a learning curve, but more positives than negatives.
I just wanted to say that our Fast Start Day at the middle school was also wonderful, and I've been so encouraged and excited to see so many students already getting involved in all of the electives that are at the middle school. They have so many different opportunities to try new activities, and they are taking full advantage of that. We are also so grateful to have some of our 8th graders come and mentor some of our 5th graders on the 5th grade Fast Start Day. So that was fun to see some of that peer mentoring happening too.
Hello. I'd just like to say that at the high school with the activities department, we have rolled out a new Platteville Activities app on a smartphone. It's called Platteville Activities. It has almost every schedule on it. We're able to build rosters on it. We are going to electronic ticketing through GoFan. We had 4 people use the electronic ticketing at the football game the other night, which was really nice. But if you go on your smartphone and punch in Platteville Activities, you'll get a red button app, and that has hopefully all the fall rosters on it. Their numbers are not in there yet. We haven't had time to put those in. But what we're trying to do is not to have coaches use their personal cell phones to text students. This is going to be an app in which coaches can communicate with parents, communicate with their players. And the reason why we went to this, we did a survey at the beginning or at the end of last year, and we were using 9 different applications to communicate with parents and kids through all of our activities. So now it's all in one. We'll have a record of everything that's sent out, so we won't have hopefully any problems. So just like to thank the board and the school district for purchasing this application to use. So it'll make our lives a lot easier. Thank you.
I can tell you, using it's a game changer. Every activity, every program, everything that's happening, whether it's a 4K concert or a high school soccer game.
We have all the school
It's
days
all
in
there.
there. Everything's in there. So
Early release.
And you can set up your notifications a week, month, 2 days ahead of time. You'll get all that information.
Really neat for the community. Jim?
I would like to celebrate we had the problem-solving opportunity this morning in the middle school. The 5th and 6th grade in the cafeteria, of all days, the air conditioning failed this morning. So right away, everybody just teamed up. So you have the maintenance side of that. They were here working on that. They tried up to what they knew they could do, and then called it out to one of our vendors, and they were there, I think, about 2 hours later. And then you go to the main office, where the admin assistant's building principal had to find cold rooms. And they were able to map that out. And then you talk to, then you look at our teachers and our students who they figured out it was hot. And when they found out that we have some cold rooms planned, the transition was really quick. So like I said, nice problem-solving opportunity, but with everybody working together, we still were able to capture some instruction today.
And I appreciate the communication that went out on behalf of the school district to the parents as well, because we were notified as well. So that was really great.
All right, moving on to opportunity for public input. Do we have anybody signed up? No. Then we'll move on to information discussion items, referendum update.
So on the screen, we have our August update that we have shared out. A primary portion of our action agenda is to approve contracts for our 3 building projects that are remaining. If you recall, we started with 5 main projects. Westview, that project is functional, not totally complete. They're waiting for some light poles and some fence. Then that one will be complete. The activities complex is ongoing. A couple more light poles were erected today. And I think the next big visual that we'll see will be the Tuesday after Labor Day, and that's when they start to erect the bleacher system. Everything, we meet on Wednesdays, and everything is on schedule to where we can have that home event on October the 13th. So that's encouraging. With the other 3, I'll talk more about when we get to it, but I would just like to recognize we started off with passing the referendum. Then we went into the planning and design phase. We had the user groups, the core groups. And then once we have that design narrowed down, we started working on what are some estimated costs, value engineering, reductions, additions, and that was a constant back and forth. Then we went out to bid. The results of the bid come back, and then that's what we're voting on tonight. And that's all I have for that.
All right. Any questions on that? We'll move on to budget update.
This is, I feel, a great opportunity for us to reflect backwards, but also look forward. So our state passed the biennial budget this summer, so that's very good. Now we know. Looking forward, we have our annual meeting at the end of October in which we set our annual budget. So when this was released, our business office went through, and let's make it specific to Platteville. Where are these items going to impact Platteville? For the most part, it's the per pupil adjustment that impacts Platteville. And that's about $3,750 if our student count stays the same. Remember, that's a 3-year rolling average. It may move up a couple, but not that much. If we go back in time, and we go back to, let's say, March and April, when we were trying to determine staff salary and wages, and then also health insurance. We agreed that total package was going to be about $1.1 million. We, at that time, we were under the belief that we were confident we were going to get about this much out of that biennial budget. Some of that was predicting, but it came through. Understanding that the previous 3 years, we had built up our fund balance for fear of and awareness of that fiscal cliff. And the big item that causes that fiscal cliff would be the ESSER funds that were dumped into schools at one time and now they're away. So we had prepared for this. Going through the rest of the items, there really aren't any significant in our budget. So we have roughly a $22 million budget per year. And I think this would help as you go through if somebody asks, well, how does the budget impact the Platteville schools? So we can go through that. There are 3 things that I would like to just lightly touch on that we as a district had spoken in favor of, but did not come through in this budget. The first one would be that special education categorical aid. That was an opportunity across the state to help every school. The budget process did not increase that as much as we had hoped it would. The second item, we were hoping that the budget would recognize, or the state would somehow recognize, that our 4K students, we currently have all day, 5 days a week, full-time students, but in the funding formula, it's 0.6. That needs to catch up with what most schools are doing, which is it's a full-time event. That didn't occur in this budget. The third item that didn't occur in this budget, not so much for the district, but for our families, and that is they stopped doing the breakfast and lunch for our students. So never going to turn down that increased aid, that $500,000, that's good, but there were some items that we were hoping for that we didn't get. Any questions?
Thanks. We'll move on to the items on the consent agenda.
5A is the adoption of the consent agenda. 5B are the minutes of our previous meetings. C, D, and E, at this time of year, new families come in, and we are honored, proud to serve our students. Anyone who's in our district, we serve them the best we can. And that's what these positions do. The students have needs. We'll meet those needs with these positions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Ben, to approve the items on the consent agenda as presented. Any questions or comments on those? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. If I could get a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda, please. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Jen, to approve the adoption of the agenda as presented. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to action items. New hire ELL teacher.
It is the recommendation from administration to hire Jessica Broglie to fill that second full-time emerging bilingual teaching position.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Betsy, second by Kurt, to approve the hiring of Jessica Broglie as an ELL teacher for the 23-24 school year. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. On to high school referendum projects.
I would like to start off by capturing B, C, and D in some general statements. One thing to highlight, as we go through these contracts, there's a difference between what we did with Point of Beginnings and then what we're doing with Myron. And here, Point of Beginnings was not the general contractor. They helped organize, but when we approved those contracts, for example, we approved one specific to Schmidt Electric, one specific to Owens. Myron has a different system in which we're approving lump sums for each of these projects, not to the specific contractors that we have. Second point to highlight, one of those items that is, as we went through it as a core committee, well, what exactly is general trades? And that would be an item just to kind of see the complexity of each of these contracts. And so Myron provided this for us. It kind of gives all those different things in that category. So that's something to look at. Also like to, when we get to, we're at the high school, we have on the left-hand column the base bid. So that is when we went out to bid, we had these items that we wanted to secure. And if the bids came out in a certain fashion, we have some alternates that we wanted to accept as well, and that's what those alternates are. And those alternates are more explained in the board packet, what exactly they are. So you have an item at the bottom. So that is on the left-hand column, or the base bid. But through the core committee's work, working with our partners, the total amount with those alternate bids, which now become part of the bid, is $9,921,237. Here's where I really want to do a good job explaining, so please be patient. That amount does not match the total amount in that summary sheet that we have for the board. And that is because this amount does not include the fees. So if you recall, when we partnered with Myron, they had a percentage fee. When we partnered with PRA, the architects, they had a percentage fee. That's why that number is less than what is in that total summary bid. Another thing to note, with our bonds, we partnered with PMA. They took our bonds, they kept some in a liquid state, so when we had our draws, when our contractor said, we've completed this, let's exchange money, so that's available. The leftover money is being invested. And through that investment, a conservative estimate is that we will gain $1.4 million. $36 million referendum, through investing those bonds, we now have up to 37.4. As of June 30th of this year, those bonds had accumulated $322,000 of profit for us. So that's where it's, I've been living in it for a while, and I still have to slow myself down to make sure I'm not communicating it incorrectly. The final thing is, in each of these bids, there is a built-in 5% of that dollar amount contingency fund. That contingency fund is for the unknowns. In the high school, a genuine concern would be, what's behind one of those walls that we're going to knock down and then build around? There may be something that, unbeknownst to the architect and the builder, you just couldn't predict it. So that's what that contingency fund is there. Let's jump back a little bit. I'm now talking about the Westview project, which is pretty much near completion. That was a $900,000 job. The contingency that was built into that, now that it's complete, we have $68,000 left. That $68,000 can get applied to this amount. No matter what, no matter how we shuffle these dollars, we still only have that 36 million plus the 1.4 that we're earning in those funds. So that is, there's always that end. With that in mind, currently we have about $180,000 unaccounted for. Remember, there is still that 5% of the contingency built in. So with such a large, roughly $25 million that we may approve tonight, 181,000 doesn't really feel like a lot. But when you combine it with that 5% contingency, we're confident that we will have enough to complete the project under budget.
Clarify that 181,000 is surplus. It's not a deficit.
Correct. It's unaccounted for, so that is money that we could spend. All right. So with that in mind, we have the opportunity to approve, if we go back to the action item for the high school, to approve those referendum projects as presented. And
Second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Matt, to approve the high school referendum projects as presented. Any questions or comments on those? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to, let me get to the right screen here, Neil Wilkins.
I think it's best for everyone if I don't repeat what I just stated. But if there are questions, we'll be glad to answer them. What I would like to take a side trail and just highlight the amount of communication that occurred within the core committee, which was your officers of the board, myself, Dimitri, business administrator, Becky Hines, director of building and grounds, and then all of our partners. It's a constant back and forth trying to get to the best place for our project. So I'd like to highlight that before we move on to Neil Wilkins.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Betsy, to approve the Neil Wilkins Early Learning Center referendum projects as presented. Any questions or comments on those?
So is that included in that first screen that you showed? The Neil Wilkins dollar amounts?
Well, it'll be different for Neil Wilkins.
If you click on there, the Neil Wilkins sheet looks like the high schools, but it's all different numbers.
Right. I was just waiting for him to bring that up.
Yeah, can you bring it up real quick? Can you go to the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
So the alternate bids is actually cheaper than the base bid?
Yeah, those numbers are juxtaposed.
Okay. Perfect. Makes sense.
So is that because it's completed and it's not?
No, it's just an error.
Oh.
I noted that prior to the meeting, and I didn't, I could have switched it before then, but it had been out.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Any other questions or comments on Neil Wilkins? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Middle school referendum projects.
So move.
Second.
So we had a motion by Kurt and a second by Ben to approve the middle school referendum projects as presented. Any questions or comments on those?
I'll make one comment before we vote. The nice part in this process for the core team, speaking for myself on the core team, is that when we went into this, we had the base. And that's what we wanted to accomplish. That's what we committed to the public and all that. We've accomplished that base and committed that to the public, and we've been able to add a lot of extra things, which in the beginning of the process and in the middle of the process, we didn't know if we were gonna get any extras. You know, we were like, God, we don't know where bids are gonna come in, what projections are and things like that. But as we kept rolling and had faith in the process actually showed us that, hey, we can do these other things. So it's really nice because each school is getting additional things that we didn't even know if they were gonna be possible or not, so.
And when they say alternates and extra things, these are things that directly impact student learning. For example, the one I'm really proud of and excited about is that Neil Wilkins. Originally, we were gonna put in, or one of the ideas was, hey, we should have a cubby area built in so that as you walk down the hall of Neil Wilkins, there's always those boots and coats and everything, but have that out of the way so you have a safer environment for those kids, an area that everything can just kind of be in. As we started getting into the process, we realized we don't know if we have the dollars for that. Let's focus on something else. As the bids came in favorably, we were able to include that back into the project. That's one of the alternates that were bid on, and that'll directly impact student learning in a real big way there at Neil Wilkins with those, our littlest learners. It's one of the areas, at least the fire inspector was always, hey, we should get that stuff out of the hall. I'd love to bring them back through now, Dave Niehaus, who's since retired, and go, we did it. So just an example, but there's examples like that all the way through Wilkins, middle school, high school. Real excited that we were able to get there. Any other questions or comments about the middle school referendum projects being approved? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. On to the hazard mitigation plan.
So this was an event that started in the spring, and the Grant County Hazard Mitigation Plan was expiring. So every 5 years we get to do this. The reason we became involved is, if you remember, applying for the FEMA Safe Structures Grant, our first year in, we were removed right away because we weren't directly listed in the Grant County Hazard Mitigation Plan. To prevent that from happening, people got together, we redid this, and now we are directly stated. So it should help with a FEMA grant. It should also open up opportunities for other federal dollars or any other grants that are out there that were specifically listed. And on a side trail, we have yet to hear about the summer of 2023's FEMA grants. They haven't been awarded at all.
So looking for a motion and a second to approve that hazard mitigation plan as presented.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Jen, to approve the Grant County mitigation plan as presented. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. On to second reading of policies.
These have passed through committee and through the first reading, and they haven't been changed since the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ben, second by Betsy, to approve the second and final reading of the policies as presented. Any questions or comments on those? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. On to district delivery driver proposal.
It's an existing position that's part-time. As our needs have grown, as our food service needs have grown, in looking at it, there's a proposal there to increase it from 27 to 40 hours. And this would benefit every building. And we just had a new need emerge when school started, in which we have, I believe, 4 of our students from the middle school taking a class at the high school, and they'll be able to be transported with this position. This position has been forwarded through the operations committee. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ben, second by Kurt to approve the district delivery driver proposal as presented. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Need one more motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kurt, second by Matt to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:26 PM. Thank you, everybody.